Okay, we are stuck, as you know, in national lockdown, but that doesn't mean we can't get some of our favorite voices here on the show. We just had our buddy Sean Davis. Now we've got David Harsanyi in the mix. He is a senior writer at National Review. Mr. Harsanyi, good to have you on, sir.
Good to be on. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with some of the political stuff right now. We've been talking so much pandemic here on the show, and there's only so much of that anybody I think can take. So I wanted to switch it around and get into some of the, because there is still a presidential election coming up. What did you make of the New York Times explanation of why it took them 2 weeks to cover the sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden? I thought it was remarkable, even though I expected. I expected double standard from them. At this point, it's not possible to be an intelligent human being and say, "Oh no, this was an honest difference of opinion." But what say you?
I mean, I laughed out loud reading it, and that's a rare thing, and I mean that I did. But what's interesting to me actually is that they covered the Biden Tara Reade accusations the way a story like that should be covered, right? First, you look at you look to see if there's any credibility to the person, to the accusations, but to the person, if they're, and you lay it out fairly. But that's obviously not what they did with Kavanaugh when they relayed every, rumor and every ridiculous accusation, gang rape, et cetera, that was out there. So their explanation that that Brett Kavanaugh was within the public forum and we needed to talk to him, but a guy who has been a senator since 1972 was vice president, and it could be the president of the United States, doesn't deserve the same sort of scrutiny it's just ridiculous. And I mean, I used to read, I think I mentioned this to you, I used to read the New York Times through a prism because I realized they were biased. But now, after seeing like the Twitter mob make them change their headlines, and in this story, make them change the Biden campaign, calling and making them actually edit a line out, makes me realize that they're just an organ of the Democratic Party completely, and it's kind of a shame because the product's not
Look, I grew up reading the New York Times. I mean, that was the paper that I turned to as I've gotten older, and have some minor investments. I've been more of a Wall Street Journal guy, but the New York Times has been something that I've been reading for a very long time. I think it has gotten crazier. It'd be fun if I could get you and Michael Malice in the same room, because a debate that Michael Malice and I keep having when I've done his show, I don't know if you even know who that is, but is that he thinks that the media has always been this bad. We just know it now because of all the different. My theory is that no, they've actually, in the era of Trump, they've actually gotten crazier, like he's broken them. So we go back and forth on this. But the New York Times is certainly worse than it's ever been, as evidenced by the line that they removed, which was, other than, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but this was the line, you know what I'm talking about. Other than unwanted kissing, touching, and hugging, there was nothing. There was like no problem with Joe Biden's conduct. And they actually wrote that.
Other than a 50-year trail of unwanted advances, he's fine. Yeah, I mean, listen, I actually think that the media was, just to quickly say, I do think that the media has always been bad. Like, I don't get the adoration for like Walter Cronkite or whoever. I think those guys are biased as well. But I think they did a better job of, they worked harder to cover up their bias. Yeah. And I do think it's gotten worse because Trump has sort of allowed them, because he is just like them and he takes them on in the same way that they act. I think it's allowed them to be more open about their hatred and pretend it's about Trump when obviously it's about, people of faith or, Republicans in general.
I'm going to tell Malice. I think you're on Team Malice on this one, which is fine. I feel like Trump, because they're also, see, this is the data point I would give you. There are conservatives or conservatives / former conservatives who I would argue have kind of lost their minds in the era of Trump. So I would put that on the side of he has changed people. But nonetheless, I mean, did you see the Jennifer Rubin thing that he's actually killing people? That's now her line.
Yeah, I don't think that you'd have people like Jennifer Rubin or Max Boot or that whole industry of people who pretend to be conservatives, who have turned on Trump, allowed in a place, in an institution like the Washington Post. I mean, this is like George. I make a distinction between never Trumpers who make arguments and don't. So George Will writes a column and he makes an argument, right? I believe that's true of other folks as well, Jonah Goldberg, David French. I mean, you might disagree with them, but I think they're making arguments. And then you have sort of the Jennifer Rubins and Max Boots, where their argument just is Trump. Trump is bad, so this is bad. I will defend China because Trump is bad, et cetera, et cetera. They don't make an argument. I don't think you would have seen that kind of columnist in a major newspaper 30
What do you think of getting back onto the Biden issue for a second? Because now he is the nominee, and it's remarkable given how many candidates they had that now I feel like how could anyone avoid the conclusion that he's the default candidate, the leave behind candidate? I mean, the guy, he's just the last one standing, and not in a good way after they had 20 people come forward. Do you see, I mean, how do you see this already shaking up? I know that we're in the midst of a pandemic, and so depending on how this goes with the economy and everything else, a ton will change. Everyone always says that about politics, but the next 6 months really are, who knows? But just Biden as a political figure matching up against Trump, how do you see that?
I think he can win, because I think most people, to some extent, I don't think the candidate matters. Most people vote party line, and they have their, they hate the other candidate, whatever it is. But I do think also he's a weak politician, and he's never been a good politician. He was in a safe, small state. Essentially, he was winning like a congressional race every 6 years. He's never been impressive in any way. He's run before. I don't think he ever won a delegate. So I don't think he's very impressive, and I do think that age matters. And this is not a matter of ageism; it's just a matter of fact. I mean, he is not what he used to be, and what he used to be wasn't great, right? So I think he's a poor guy as a candidate. However, I think the Democratic Party have these factions, the left, the right, but other sort of one or two issue voting factions that are hard to bring together. So they needed to just get behind the guy who they thought had the best chance of winning. And maybe Biden is that guy. I don't make predictions, but I think out of who we saw, he was probably the guy best situated to win. A sort of populist, old-fashioned Democrat who can take on Trump, maybe on the same sort of grounds. I don't know. We'll see.
How would you assess? And I bring you on because I know you're a balls and strikes guy with Trump. You're not a Trump is always playing. I think it's now gone up to 15D chess. It was 4D chess, but the D's keep adding them up over time. But how would you assess the political what he has done in response to this pandemic and where that puts him politically? Just looking at it from that angle, how do you think he's doing?
I think that he started off slowly. I think he was a little too flippant about what might have been coming. Like, I don't expect that he should have known what was coming. I don't really blame people for their late reaction to this, frankly. And that goes for like the media, Cuomo, even de Blasio in some ways, or Trump. I think how you react is what matters. And I think he reacted pretty well after that.
So good on the actions, but the messaging you think was a little, he was a little loosey goosey with, it's going to go away, because that's going to come back certainly in the general election contest.
Right. It's just a stupid thing to say because you don't know. And so it's better just to be, safe, judicious about things like that. But whatever the case, I think that as a political matter, though, I think that if we recover and the deaths aren't as high as we had feared, and obviously it's still just a terrible thing that's going on, but I think that it won't change that much for him. Obviously, and I know that tomorrow could bring some new crazy scandal. I don't know what's coming, but as of right now, I think he's done a decent job for him. I think these press conferences were very helpful in the beginning. Maybe they've gone off the rails a little bit, but I just don't think that the average American is hanging on every press conference and every word in the way that the Twitterverse is. So I think I give him like a B, as a grade, I guess.
Yeah, and on those press conferences, I guess I should never be surprised by this, but the ability of some members of the press to turn a moment of true national crisis where information does matter into Orange Man was mean to me, and let's all talk about this and have this trend on Twitter. I know that for 95% of the country, this doesn't matter, but for the 5% that thinks that they're the ones determining what the news is on any given day, it is just stunning that we're supposed to care that like Trump basically told some punk journalist to shut up. Like, I just don't care. And I find it amazing that so many people within the sphere of journalism and the media do care.
Well, I mean, you had Trump play this video of the press, also downplaying coronavirus, which is probably not something he should do in that forum, but I found it pretty
Yeah,
funny. The
I
thing
found it
is,
funny too.
yeah, everyone's like, all the pearl clutching, everyone's going bananas. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of the media spend most of their time doing the same exact thing with the same exact kind of gotchas, except against him. He basically just turned the tables on them. We waste so much time on that. Even now on Twitter, reporter after reporter, all they do is go back to like match up the dates to when, the World Health Organization was saying something and when Trump was saying something. I'm not saying that's not it's important to some extent, but to make that the mission and the bulk of what you talk about, it's such a waste of time. And I just don't think that will play well overall with most voters. I just don't think they care that much about gotchas like that.
How worried are you about the you're a guy who is willing to say this is how I see it, and then you just sort of take the incoming. How worried are you about the economy?
Well, I mean, I'm incredibly worried, right? Shouldn't we be? I think that to some extent, there was nothing, and I'm not an economist, but to some extent, you had no real underlying reason for this to happen. It was some existential, unforeseeable virus that hit us. So you could recover probably very fast once you're allowed to. But the longer it goes on, the more I wonder if there's going to be some kind of irreparable damage done, or not irreparable, but some long-term damage that is going to, put us into a long-term recession. And it's very scary. And and I hate to go out there and write like everyone needs to stay home, and if you leave your house, you're a terrible person, like I see a lot of people doing, because I have a job still. Hopefully, I will have a job. And it's easy to say that from my position, but people whose life's work is being destroyed by this and who can't support their families anymore and may lose their houses, etc. This is one of the most devastating things I think that's happened in economically to this country, certainly since I've been alive. So
have you seen, do you have, friends, contacts that are either entrepreneurs or small business owners? And have you been speaking to folks where they're basically, wiped out by this pending some government miracle?
Yeah, I mean, I know people who've lost their jobs, and I know people who are in bad shape, and their businesses are in really bad shape right now. And I think the hope is that when it ends, we all emerge, and there's going to be just this huge upswing. I'm not sure that's the case when you think about restaurants. Like sometimes I go outside, walk my dog, and I see other human beings, and I'm like, I avoid them, right? Like I don't want them near me. And I wonder, will I ever be able to go and shake someone's hand again, or act normally? Like it's so foreign already to me to be able to do something like that, that I wonder how many people are going to go into a movie theater or a restaurant in the next year or two, three, whatever, and feel comfortable. So hopefully there's a vaccine and things change. But right now it's, I'm pretty gloomy about it, but I'm also in another sense watching Americans act without coercion, even though some people are trying to coerce them the right way together is heartening. You don't see that on Twitter, but when you go out into the real world, I think it's heartening to see that Americans are acting in a responsible way without being coerced and looking out for each other.
Yeah, absolutely. David Harsanyi, everybody, senior writer at National Review. David, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. And stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
You too. Thanks for having me.
There was a briefing last week where he began to say that he was halting funding for the World Health Organization, and then he backpedaled away from that. So obviously they feel like they've come up with a distraction to use at today's briefing. Yesterday it was the news media. Today it's the WHO. And if you go through the scapegoats that he's blamed so far for this coronavirus pandemic, the WHO, members of the news media, Democrats in Congress, governors, he's blamed China, he's blamed the Obama administration, he's blamed everybody but himself. And Wolf, it comes to mind what we saw yesterday during that briefing, that Monday meltdown, when he played that propaganda video in the White House briefing room. These briefings altogether are coming across like something out of Baghdad Bob.
I feel like Jim Acosta, his great personal hero is Baghdad Bob. So to invoke him in this way is not surprising. I had to play that for you. Sure enough, CNN still clinging to the fiction that they're just there to bring you the truth and the facts. I don't know when everyone's going to and I mean their audience. I know you know this, but I don't know when their audience is going to realize, all right, this is just a joke. this is just too much. We can't do that. And also David Harsani, they're talking. Did we play the Trump handshaker clip, Mark? Did you already play that one? I can't remember now. I do so much radio now. It's like I just live in the radio zone. Well, if we haven't play. That's right. Play it. Darn it. 12.
I don't know that people are going to be shaking hands as readily. Some will. I said to some of the hospital people today, so will people be shaking hands again? And I must say, I was a little surprised. Most of them said probably, because there is some kind of a thing to it. I was never a big handshaker, but when I ran for politics, I said, I think I better start shaking people's hands.
Where are you, Producer Mark, on the shaking hands? People seem to have very strong opinion. I mean, I don't mean right now. I mean, let's say we get past this. 5 years from now, are we shaking hands?
Maybe. I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. Like, I was carrying hand sanitizer in my pocket years before this ever happened. So, like, somebody would shake my hand if I don't know them that well. I probably would use hand sanitizer afterwards.
I've always wanted to know, too. It would be so amazing. I know this is something we'll never have answers to, but I think it would change a lot of perceptions if we could know, how did we get that really bad cold, or how did we get the flu at different times in our lives? Because I bet if you actually could trace it back and figure it out, you'd realize it's just, it's that one bad luck, dumb moment, and all of a sudden, you're out for 7 or 10 days or something. So
there's actually an episode of Scrubs. There's a clip that's going viral of one person coming into the hospital carrying a disease, and they're green, just to show that they have a disease. They shake somebody's hand, that person shakes somebody else's hand, touches something. It went viral right at the start of this, and it's incredible if you think of it like that. If you could see the virus, what it would look like.
Yeah, I think that they did. There was a simulation that they did in Germany where they were able, because they had a closed loop of people in one place, and they had them all on. I think they had them all on video camera, and then they had an outbreak of some COVID-19, and they were able to look and see. And like, there was one thing where a guy passes another German guy the salt, and that was it. Oh, that was how he got. So they actually were able to break it down by some specific acts like that. But yeah, it does. I've always been a like push the button with like your shirt or your elbow kind of a guy, and I feel like that means going forward, I don't know, maybe we do just sort of a stand and like a wave like the Queen of England to people, like hello, like don't they do she like turns the hand sort of side to side, or something. I feel
Buck, will you ever have ketchup at a restaurant again?
Ooh. That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I do like ketchup. I'm a ketchup, not a mustard.
Oh, I love ketchup too, but kind of gross.
I'm gonna have a lot of little ketchup packets in the future. Roll call time, everybody. It is the time for the roll of the call. Producer Mark, thank you for pulling them out today. Did we manage to get some that have nice things about me, or just Team Producer Mark forever?
Okay, there's always nice things about both of us. It's not just me.
I'm just saying. I know. We gotta make sure. We don't want Producer Mark. You can't have this. You can't have like the spinoff of the sitcom when the sitcom is still going. Okay, so we got Producer Mark. You got a few more years before the Producer Mark show gets to spin off on its own. We need him here with us in the Freedom Hut. So tell him he's great, but don't tell him he's too great, or else he's gonna fly the coop. Bradley. Hey, Buck and Producer Mark. Wanted to give you guys an update on things in Hollywood. Again, while Schiff is putting together another committee to bust President Trump, I took a little drive down Hollywood Boulevard past his office again. So many homeless out camping on the streets, even one sleeping in the alcove of the door to his building. The other thing I noticed was that, strangely enough, in the middle of the pandemic, there are still a ton of those dirty public scooters laying on all the sidewalks in Hollywood, too. Hope Hollywood can get their Schiff cleaned up. Well, Bradley, thanks for the update from Hollywood. Yeah, it's a real public health concern. Always has been, to have so many people, thousands of people in Los Angeles sleeping on the streets. I've seen some of those encampments myself. I made the mistake of choosing a hotel a couple of years ago that was right on Hollywood Boulevard, deep in Hollywood, and it's not all glitz and glamour over there, folks. That's not where you want to be. As for Schiff and trying to get Trump on this, you know, they're going to keep this stuff going with the rush because Schiff has nothing else to do. So this is what he's going to be up to. But I don't think anybody. Can you imagine them trying to hold a hearing right now? And, the President Trump had a phone call to a guy in Ukraine, and he said, maybe you can help us. I mean, nobody will even. It's ridiculous. No one's going to pay any attention to that. That's just crap. It's just garbage. Garbage. It's true. So as for what else was there a thing? There was an interesting study, and I'm hoping for those of you who've been following some of his stuff, and he was on Tucker's show. Alex Berenson, former New York Times reporter. He's really an author. I think he's written like a dozen books or something. But we've been corresponding, and I'm going to have him on. He's the only one. Remember, he's not a skeptic of the virus. That's not true. He is just looking at the numbers and the data and asking questions and saying, hold on a second, this was what we were told, and this was what happened. And if there's a disparity, it's worth looking at why that's the case. So we're going to have him on. One of the few people who's willing to ask tough questions about the lockdown consensus, including questions like, does lockdown really make us safer? Is lockdown really the better long-term play than lesser mitigation measures that are calibrated for the state, for the city in question? So we're hoping to have him on soon this week. I've already been talking to him. Seems like a nice guy. Josh. Hey, Buck, been listening in Round Rock ever since I heard you say, come out the coast, have a few laughs. Well, thank you, Josh. Some diehard lines are important. I deliver food while I listen to your show. It's an honor to try to keep these mom and pop restaurants going. They are on life support. I can't imagine what you're going through in Ground Zero NYC, but remember, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind, just like your radio program. Keep your cast iron skillet high. It will block bullets and cook perfect steaks. Josh, excellent advice all across the board, my friend. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for the advice. And I appreciate hearing from you, man. And thank you for delivering food to restaurants, keeping them going. I mean, everybody who's showing up to do a job right now, who's out in the virus red zone, which means not work from home, you're helping the country out. You are doing a service. Yeah, of course, you're getting paid, as you well should. You're doing a service for all of us. And you're not even serving the United States government. You're doing a service for us, your fellow Americans, your fellow human beings. Because I can tell you this, the moment that all of a sudden people start going to the store and the shelves are empty for a few days, if that were to happen in the grocery stores, then things would get really ugly really quickly. Then I would be concerned. Then it's like head for the bunker and grab the ammunition and the water and the storable food. And so I don't think we're going to get there, but we're not going to get there because people keep doing their jobs, keep showing up, and keep us going. Al, Buck, love hearing you this evening. You're hitting it on all cylinders. Vroom, vroom. Thank you, Al. Consider this, the art of the deal, negotiation. Trump has drawn his enemy out to say he's not and cannot be responsible. Boom! Checkmate. Al, completely correct on this one. They all freaked out. Oh, you're not a king. Oh, you're not a, you don't have the right to do that. Okay, now Trump is saying it's up to the governors. So when inevitably there is, and by the way, I shouldn't say it's inevitable. Maybe some states will just be able to control this and, with the mitigation measures that aren't a lockdown of the economy, maybe that will be the case, that we'll be able to control this going forward. And so we'll see. But if there's a renewed outbreak somewhere, there will not be the opening to bash Trump that there would otherwise be. And that's what the media is all worked up about, or they will be when that happens. And you're right, Trump did get them to declare that he cannot be somebody who will be held responsible for, or he cannot be rather the person who makes the decision, and therefore there'll be difficulties holding him responsible. Cheryl, hey Buck, I just wanted to drop a note and tell you thank you. You're normally my calm part of the day after hearing crazy lies all day on the news or on social media. I keep meaning to drop you a note. I know you're thinking about getting a bulldog. I'm a dog trainer, behaviorist, and will tell you they do not typically live a long time. They usually have a lot of health issues due to how they are bred to look so unlike other dogs. Cheryl, thank you so much for writing in. And yeah, I know. I actually have a very dear friend, a woman who's been a friend of mine. Her husband and I, we've all been friends now for oh gosh, 20 years. And I've known her for over 30 years. And she's a dog trainer here in New York. And so I've had these conversations with her too. Yeah, I know. Brachycephalic dogs. Brachycephalic means that it's actually a dwarf gene that was bred into this. And that's where you get the smushy face dogs. They have a form of canine dwarfism. And that's what has been bred into them. And they've tried to get this. And that's why you have the bulldogs have very big head, and the way the jaw and everything else it's all, and the squish face. It's a gene that was sought out for that breed. But it does mean, I know that they can have breathing issues. I mean, Tallulah, who's next to me, Tallulah is next to me during the show. I mean, yeah, she snores a whole heck of a lot, and it's because she's got a squished in little pig face, which is also why I call her a little piggy. But I love bulldogs. I don't know what to tell you. And, maybe I'll have to rescue an older bully that's out there, and maybe that's the way to do it, because I know there are some bullies, especially when they get older, people, hand them. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine just dropping off your canine best friend at the pound or at the shelter and saying, here you go. It's getting too tough for me. I don't know. It's not a decision that I'd ever be able to make, but maybe I'll be able to rescue an older one, but I think I'm going to get one. The other thing I've thought about is maybe getting one of these. I like puggles. So that's a beagle and a pug. You ever seen those, Producer Mark?
It sounds adorable.
They're adorable. Puggles are great. So it's a pug mixed with a beagle. So they have a little bit less of the breathing problems and a lot of pep. The thing about beagles is they're kind of yappy. Do you have a favorite dog?
I used to have a mutt that was part beagle. They howl.
Yeah.
So that's the big problem with a beagle.
Yeah, they do howl, yeah.
But my favorite dog would be a golden retriever.
That's yeah.
They're just so friendly.
The girlfriend wants her dream dog is a golden retriever. So, that may have to happen one day.
You need to move out of the city for that.
Yeah, I've told her that. I said you can't be in a. The thing about bulldogs in a city apartment is they're kind of like, oh sweet, I've got a couch. I mean, they're like the couch potato dog. So under quarantine, they're also fantastic. I mean, Tallulah walks outside, does what she's got to do, and then she's like, let's go back inside. No problem. Other dogs, I don't want to have to take out a Springer Spaniel that's like, where do we go? Where's the field? I need to go frolic and chase pheasant. And no, I don't have the space for that here. I don't have any pheasant, Producer Mark.
Well, you need to get some pheasant, obviously.
I need to do some
indoor pheasant.
Indoor, those would be unhappy pheasant, let me tell you. There's not a lot of space in here. Freedom Hut is snug. John, solution first. Trying to figure out a way to reopen is simple. Educate, make suggestions, support those who are at greatest risk or feel the need to isolate, and return the responsibility to the people. I've followed you for a long time, and with this current circus, I have never fallen for the panic regarding the virus, but I've always worried about the reaction. Here in Tennessee, the reluctant to impose a mandatory isolate decree governor has just extended the mandate. Even in red states, the elected are acting as parents instead of leaders. Yeah, I've seen that. Some red states have moved more in this direction than I would have anticipated. Part of my problem, I guess, as I look at this is I'm just not. Some people are absolutely certain, 100% convinced that the economic lockdown was a necessary part of reducing the spread, and that it wouldn't have been better to have allowed for some businesses to continue with all the other measures in place. That's where I have a little bit of. So instead of, if lockdown is level 10, I've just been thinking, okay, well, maybe some states should be at level 7, or level 6. They don't need to be at level 10 the way New York, New York level 10. Yeah, maybe that is the best case here. I mean, I could certainly understand that point of view, and it seems to be supported by at least some of the evidence at this point about lockdown specifically. But I feel like other places, they could be at a 7 and they're at a 9. And maybe, if there weren't such high stakes, you could say, well, that's not a big deal. But the additional lockdown measures means economic pain, means people staying at home that wouldn't have to. And there are real consequences for all that. Roll call continues here. Roger. Buck, it is weird seeing Fort Bragg, a.k.a. the center of the universe, a ghost town. We need to get back to normal. Roger, I can imagine that would definitely be an unsettling sight. And I agree. We got to get back to normal. I assume military bases now, the big ones in this country, are on lockdown just like everywhere else. And, everyone realizes that there's a lot that's got to get done. There's a lot that we have to do. And yes, defeating the virus is part of it, but keeping life going, saving life and keeping life going. These are the things that we have to find a way forward with. David, Buck, people make the mistake thinking Trump is an egomaniac. Egomania is for those with incomplete self-awareness. Trump is completely self-aware. His stating at a press conference that his power is total was a brilliant political move. Now the instinct of the Democratic governors will be to not listen to his recommendations to open up their states. When the red states open up sooner and their economies rapidly improve comparatively, the Dem governors will be forced to take the heat for staying shut and will be unable to ask for more federal bailouts without exposing the hypocrisy of their newfound federalism. They will then put their entire party's hold on the state in jeopardy. Like I said, brilliant, shields high. No, I mean, David, I think I made somewhat of this same case yesterday that you're going to see if red states like Texas open up and do well, it's going to put a lot of pressure on those blue states to also begin to take a less shutdown centric view of things. So that's where we're at on that. All righty. I think that's the case. Look, I started the show today with Trump talking about how the governors are going to make the decision because that's very important. That's a big move because the day before it was all, oh, King Trump, look what he's doing. Can't trust him. He's just going to seize power and all this other stuff. So, yeah. Stetson writing in here. Hi, Buck. I've been thinking about this absolute authority comment of Trump's, and I can't help but wonder if he was referring to the task force and whose decision it would be to ease the guidance. I think Trump has been bristling over the suggestion that this decision was up to Fauci, and he reacted to that aspect. Don't know if you saw it the same way. Well, Stetson, it's Trump translating is something that a lot of us try to do, and it's not as easy. It's not as straightforward as many would seem to make it want to believe. As for whether he saw, I think it was just Trump being like, I'm the big dog. That's kind of what I said yesterday. I think it's Trump just saying, no, I make the decision. I'm the man here, And then when it comes to the constitutional question and he talks to his advisors, he does the right thing. And look, I know that it's so easy and say, oh, you can't just look back to the Obama administration. Obama would do the constitutionally wrong thing, right? Obama would do real overreach and the press would say, oh, it's amazing. He's a genius. He's brilliant. He's perfect. Trump is like, yeah, I'm awesome. And they say he's going to be the tyrant. He's going to overreach. And then he does the constitutionally correct, and from the perspective of government overreach, the more minimal thing. He takes a minimalist approach to government intervention in areas that are gray. He goes back to the courts and sees what they have to say about it. He is not the overreaching tyrant they want to believe he is, and this has shown us once again that he ends up doing the right thing. So yeah, when he said, my authority is absolute, he's goading the press. He's poking them to watch them go, oh, good heavens, oh my gosh, did you hear what Trump said? Oh no, I'm so upset. And then they go, clutch the pearls, clutch those pearls. Maybe Jim Acosta will stand up to him again.
When did the cast of The Crown become our journalists?
I've been watching a lot of The Crown. It's true. You got me. I can't pretend like that's not what just happened there.
Yeah, I didn't realize the British press started covering Trump's press conferences.
Yeah. Well, the members of the press, at least the bosses, are more like, hey, it's like Trump. He's going to do this for the people, or the crowd. They're a little bit different. They're not quite as up here. That's the royal family. They're like, oh no, good heavens. It's different. Maybe I should do just like a one-man show, That'd be kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. I'd have
I guess I'm already
fun.
doing a radio show, but I mean like a one-man Netflix special where I just do a Netflix show as one person.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I would love that.
I've been in quarantine too long. Yeah, you can edit it. Bram Buck, I can't believe Ann bashed Trump. He's done more in my lifetime to keep his promises. I agree we need the wall, but I believe he's trying to despite the swamp fighting him at every turn. Well, Bram, Ann tries to give Trump tough love, but remember, she was one of the earliest supporting him. She wrote an entire book supporting him. She's been very good about the overall Trump agenda. And I like to have people, I always give people their say on the show, and I think overall Ann's great, and we appreciate her time here. But thank you for writing in. That's it, team. Shields high.